thanks for coming. As you guys know me, I'm Buck Boswell, SPT. Here to present to you guys a little in-service on some research I did with some of my professors, Dr. Saifi, Dr. Harper, and Dr. Aaron. So I had a research fellowship that I did with them, and we kind of created this study from scratch. And the study is being continued right now, but this is just a case study of my first subject that I'm going to present at the CSM, a poster presentation, which will be more like a meet and greet thing. But for you guys, I went ahead and put it together a PowerPoint and just kind of go over some of the things. So here's just a brief overview of my poster. It's pretty wordy, so I'm going to spare you guys from reading that. But we'll start off with, what is cupping? So we have cupping here at our clinic at VCSST. But first records of cupping date back to 1550 BC, and they thought it was extracting foreign matter and different things. It's commonly used in Eastern medicine very early on, places like Greece, traditional Chinese medicine, the Arabs used it. And it was adopted by Western society primarily for the treatment of pain. You can see right here, this would be an example of wet cupping. Basically they put a cup on your skin, then they take it off after a minute, and then do some scratches, and then put the cup back on there. So it's a form of bloodletting, also called hijama cupping. This one right here, you can see it's just dry cupping with glass cups, where they wipe the inside of the cup with an alcohol swab, and then light it, and then put it on, which creates a negative pressure, a vacuum. And then right here is actually one of my classmates. He got cupped yesterday, I believe, and sent me this picture, so I added it in here. But this is dry cupping that uses the manual pump to use it. But you can see he's pretty bruised up.
Did you do it just for fun?
No, he just...
Just for the photo?
No, he's got a whole issue.
He's got a whole
We can go back into that later. But anyways, other forms of cupping, I talked about dry, I talked about wet, also dynamic cupping, which is kind of what we kind of looked at here, but two forms of dynamic cupping. One would be putting a cup on along with some lubricant and moving the cup using it as massage. And the other would be putting a cup on and having the patient or individual go through active range of motion exercises, things like that, which is kind of what we looked at in our study. So, oh God. How do I get back?
I have a question,
There it
Stephen.
goes. Yes.
Where did Buck come from?
Not right now.
Hey, I am asking the questions here.
So first, how does it work? So I have a little slide for you guys to read over.
Because science.
That one's for you guys. As you can see, magic, dreams,
What is that one on the right?
Magic, dreams, SIJ pain, all associated together. On a more serious note, so some guys, Emmerich and others, they kind of did a study, and kind of in their lit review, this is kind of what they came up with. And basically, when you apply a cup, it creates a vacuum that's distracting the underlying tissues. How deep, though, is kind of the question. There's one biomechanical kind of analysis that's out there by some guys named Pham and others. Basically, they took cupping and they did a mathematical model with what's happening in the underlying tissues. And basically, the theory with cupping was that, and with the acupuncture things, you use smaller cups for more shallow issues and larger cups for more deeper issues. What they found in that study is that it doesn't really matter. Basically, they concluded use the biggest cup that will fit in the area. So the bigger the better. And also, the most tensile stress is around the ring of the cup. So it adds compression there while distracting the other tissues. As far as how deep it can pull, they didn't really say. Ultimately, Emmerich, from their review, they came up with two things. One was the metabolic hypothesis. So how is this working? So basically, it's inhibiting excited muscles, things that are in spasm, things that are overactive, and produces local vasodilation, increased microcirculation. Also allows inflammatory mediators to be evacuated. So if you had a buildup of things like lactate, pyruvate, glycerin, all these things involved in the inflammatory process, that when you cupped, it increased blood flow and removed those. So this is the metabolic hypothesis. Next is the neuronal hypothesis. So basically it alters the CNS processing of the brain and spinal cord, as well as the nociceptor. So kind of a neurophysiological response. And then they concluded these might be interconnected, because when you have inflammatory processes and such, and you have inflammatory cytokines, you can get sensitization peripherally at the nociceptor, which goes up to the spinal cord, causing a pain perception, can eventually lead to central sensitization if gone on too long. So that was kind of the hypothesis in their literature review.
They talk about lactic acid calcification at all?
No, they didn't talk about lactic acid, but we're going to get to a point on that.
Really?
So some of the evidence, first one, is it Chow, right?
Sure.
I'll go for it. A meta-analysis for randomized control trials, over 900, I believe it's 926 subjects total out of all the studies, but included wet and dry cupping and the effects on pain. Basically, they concluded that it's good for short-term relief. Next would be a study by Kim and others. Systematic reviews of 7 randomized control trials. A couple had good results as far as pain relief. Couple no. But most trials were poor quality. Things like not a lot of subjects, stuff like that. Another study, some guys that do a lot of stuff on it is Lausch and others. One of their studies was a randomized pilot. They had 50 subjects with chronic neck pain, did 5 cupping treatments over 2 weeks. They had significant differences in pain and the subscales for bodily pain and vitality on SF-36 and pain pressure threshold for neck pain. And onward to the next thing. So the study by Markowski and others is kind of what we modeled our study after at Radford. So they had 17 patients with low back pain. They put 4 cups static in the lumbar region for, I believe it was 10 minutes. They did pain pressure threshold in the lumbar region on the area where the cups would be. They found significant differences in VAS scores, left straight leg raise, range of motion, little typo there, lumbar flexion range of motion, and pain pressure threshold in the erectors. Study by Emmerich, which is the same guys that had in their lit review those neuronal and metabolic hypotheses. They did studies using microdialysis and the upper trapezius muscles in healthy and subjects with neck pain. What they found was, before they did any treatment, there's no difference in these inflammatory factors in their subjects. Some studies they cited did find differences, but for this study didn't find any in these 4 substances, any increase in the people with neck pain. But ultimately what they found was, when doing microdialysis, is that during the cupping, blood flow was limited to the underlying tissues. From there, after they took the cupping off, it allowed, let me go to it. So, after they took the cup off, it induced an increase in lactate secondary and lactate pyruvate ratio secondary to hypoxia, or hypoxemia, increasing the overall anaerobic metabolism, overall increasing the metabolic acidosis, because lactate is an acid, which is called local vasodilation. So ultimately what they found is, after they took the cup off, due to the anaerobic metabolism going on, it had increased vasodilation and so forth then. Ultimately they found a decrease in pain thresholds. They checked it every 20 minutes, up to 280 minutes, and at 280 minutes is when the pain threshold, where they did pain pressure algometry, was kind of went away. So again, a short-lived effect.
Like 5 hours.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Here's just a graphic from that study, just kind of showing the differences in the inflammatory mediators in the underlying tissues.
So they found no difference at baseline between, at least with Emmerich at all?
No difference in baseline
With the
as far as
inflammatory
inflammatory stuff.
What about, they do it after? The concentrations afterwards?
So this is concentrations afterwards.
So I don't know what this is.
Alright, so you have, this top line is lactate, so you had an increase in lactate.
Okay.
And the thicker
So
lines
increase in showing
are the line of
the
best fit.
the vasodilation part of it.
Do what?
That was the results were more of improving vasodilation as a result of that.
Right,
Okay.
right.
Sorry.
So these thicker lines are the line of best fit for the graph. So you can see the lactate increased up to 280 minutes is the end of this graph right here. Here's some ultrasound they did. real-time ultrasound after the cups were removed. You have, I believe A is before cupping, and basically they're measuring thickness of the subcutaneous tissue, which is this one right here, 1. And then, if I remember correctly, they didn't really state what was what in the article, but from what I know is this top layer of skin, then you have subcutaneous tissue, and then as you can see, this would be the underlying upper trapezius with the fascial layers right there. So you can see from here, immediately after cupping, you went from before is almost half a centimeter to almost a centimeter. 130 minutes after cupping, it's back down to 3/4 of a centimeter, and then 18 hours after cupping, it's getting close to back to normal. So the purpose of our little study that we're going to do is to examine the effects of dry cupping coupled with exercise on recurring low back pain and lower extremity range of motion. So ultimately our study is going to be a control group, an experimental group, and it's just a pilot, and I'll get to the interventions in just a sec. So case description for this case was a 24-year-old female. She had recurring low back pain for greater than 2 months. She had much longer than that, kind of exacerbated by anything she really did, like sitting for a long time. She enjoys listening and playing volleyball. She's a graduate student. So interventions, what we did with the subject was she was in our intervention group. So basically we started off with session 1 where we took all our outcomes, which I'll talk about in a sec. But it included the ODI, straight leg raise, passive range of motion, SFMA categorization, NPRS scores, Grok scores, and pain pressure threshold in the low back and the tib anterior. So basically the first treatment session, it was cups statically on the low back for 10 minutes, and our pain pressure thresholds were taken respectively where the cups were, so that'd be A, B, C, D, and then we do it on the anterior tib too. It'd be that way for 10 minutes, then we remove the cups, and then we'd add the cups to the quadricep muscle groups in just some kind of anatomical fashion, basically just a grid format. Then basically they would go through 2 sets of 10 of just longer quads, really focusing on going as far as they could, the flexion and extension. What we found is, anecdotally, is they don't like that too much. Kind of hurts, stings, pinches a little bit. Then we moved over to the hamstrings muscle groups where we placed, again, 4 just on the hamstrings in an anatomical fashion. Then they did 2 sets of 10 straight leg raises. Did that for 3 treatment sessions. There's 48 hours in between each treatment session. 72 hours after the 3rd treatment session, they came back in for reassessment. It's kind of cut off at the bottom. But ultimately, to standardize the measurements and section on the cups, there's a line on the cup that's about a centimeter and a quarter up. We just pumped it up to that line. So our outcomes, for SFMA category, we determined she was a stability motor control dysfunction. So basically, if you're not familiar with those findings, is that when we tested her straight leg raise actively, she went to, for example, 70 degrees. When we tested it passively, she went beyond 70 degrees, over 10 degrees. So saying that it was a motor control dysfunction versus a tissue extensibility dysfunction, which would be consistently active would be 70, and then passive would only be a little bit more. For multi-segmental flexion, she was functional, not painful, meaning she had full range of motion down to her toes, no compensation. And then for multi-segmental extension, she was dysfunctional, painful, which means she was not able to have full range of motion, which would be standardized by the ASIS has to move past the toes, uniform curve throughout the back with the arms overhead, and she had pain with that. Straight leg raise, passive range of motion. Her left leg improved from 65 to 80 degrees over the week's time, and then her right leg stayed exactly the same. NPRS scores, she started at 2, and then she went to 0 at the end. And we also did it with intersession, so we every session we checked it before and after, along with the Grok scores. And after every session, she had improved. We also did for the past week, so when she came in on the first day, I said, what's the worst NPRS score you've had in the past week? And her number was 5, and then for the final treatment session, she said 3. ODI went from 20 to 12%, so not a significant change there. For her Grok score, overall, she did 3, which is somewhat better, I believe. The Grok is just a subjective measure that says you know, related to your low back pain, how are you feeling now? 0 is about the same, and then negative numbers for worse and worse, or positive numbers for greater and greater. Then last but not least is pain pressure threshold. So you can see our pre is the blue, and then LB1 would be the left higher one, LB2 would be the right next higher, 3, 4, and then tib anterior 1 would be the left tib anterior and the right. Basically, we use the tib anterior to kind of standardize whether is this getting better because they're accommodating to us using a pressure ergometer on them multiple times, or is it because they're actually getting better from where the treatment is. So you can see that all the numbers improved there. So our discussion and conclusion. So there's lots of talk about, you know, what does cupping do? Is it distracting the tissues, things like that. Ultimately, we can kind of hang our hat on the neurophys response, that this is changing the perception at the brain level, and basically putting a novel stimulus on there. So if they have pain or something when they're going through an active range of motion, it's a new sensation that, you know, a patient, you know, it decreases their fear avoidance, or it can decrease the irritability of the tissues just by stimulating the nervous system. Going back to that graph with the pain pressure threshold, so one reason that the tib anterior might have had an improved pain pressure threshold is yes, because they're accommodating to the pressure ergometer. Another reason is that with neurophysiological responses, you change the perception in the brain, so we might be changing perception in the brain down to the tib anterior level. So that's kind of two ways to explain that. It's patient beliefs. So you know, Michael Phelps used cupping in the Olympics. You know, a patient comes in and it's like, well, I saw Michael Phelps do this. Maybe it'll help me. So that's one reason we could use it. We're able to use it in a static or dynamic fashion. So putting cuffs on there and, you know, allowing them to sit for 10 minutes, or we can put them on cuffs and have them do exercise. So ultimately, that concludes it.